There were 6 of them. Matching khaki vests, tactical boots, clipboards held like sidearms. One had a drone. One had a measuring wheel. One was holding a laminated citation like it was a search warrant. And me? I was on my porch in flip-flops, holding a mug that said, #OneDogDad, while my Labrador, Duke, stared down the entire fake HOA strike team like they were squirrels who owed him rent. Okay, I thought. So this is how suburban warfare starts. Over a bark. Then the squad leader actually yelled, "Secure the perimeter. The subject is armed and non-compliant." Right as Duke farted and knocked over a flower pot. Boom. One sound. Everything exploded. That's when I knew. They weren't just trying to ban my dog. They were trying to start a revolution. Before we dive into how my dog accidentally triggered a suburban tactical response unit, hit that subscribe button, drop a comment if your HOA's ever tried something insane, and like this video if you think Duke deserves a medal. You ever wake up to the sound of betrayal? I did. 7:02 a.m., Tuesday, mid-coffee, still in my pajama pants with holes in places I won't discuss in polite company. I hear a knock so aggressive it rattled my front door like it owed someone money. My dog, Duke, retired bomb-sniffing Labrador, 90 pounds of muscle and side-eye, let out one warning bark that echoed through the house like the start of a John Wick sequel. I shuffled to the door, opened it, and there she stood. Karen. Not a Karen. The Karen. HOA president, neighborhood tyrant, emotional support clipboard always tucked under one arm like it held the secrets of the universe. "Good morning," she chirped, all teeth and menace. "We've had several complaints." I hadn't said a word yet. She held up a laminated form with highlighter marks like it was a restraining order against Joy. "About your canine." I blinked. "You mean Duke?" She smiled, and I swear birds dropped dead out of the sky. "Yes, there have been reports of aggressive behavior." I stared. "You mean when he barked at a squirrel last week?" She nodded solemnly, like I just confessed to war crimes. "He barked at Mrs. Langford's poodle. Because the poodle was wearing a tutu. It frightened her." "The dog or the tutu?" Karen didn't blink. "We have a zero-tolerance policy for aggressive animals in our community. HOA Ordinance 12B states all pets must maintain a pleasant and predictable temperament." I blinked again. "What the hell does that even mean?" "It means," she said, stepping slightly into my doorway uninvited, "you'll need to remove your dog from the premises within 72 hours. I laughed, right in her face. It was involuntary. I hadn't even sipped my coffee yet. "That's hilarious," I said. "Now go away." She didn't laugh. Instead, she handed me a thick envelope that smelled faintly of printer ink and delusion. Inside, 6 printed citations, a compliance warning, and a psych evaluation request for my dog. "You want a therapist to talk to Duke?" "Not a therapist," she corrected. "A certified animal behavior consultant. He'll determine if your dog poses a psychological threat to the community." "You're talking about a dog who eats carrots and snores like a grown man." She tilted her head. "Threats aren't always visible, Mr. Gentry. That's my name, by the way. Dave Gentry. I bought this place 4 years ago for the peace and the quiet. Mostly the quiet. I wanted a spot to retire from my IT job, fix up an old Chevy, drink whiskey on my porch, and let Duke chase butterflies until he finally gave up and took a nap in the sun. But I should have known peace was temporary the second Karen slid her welcome letter under my door like a mafia hit list. The HOA here wasn't just power-hungry, it was feral. These people fined a guy for wind chimes once. Wind chimes. Anyway, back to Duke. My 11-year-old best friend with PTSD and a love of peanut butter. Karen was trying to evict him. And you know what happens when you threaten a retired military dog? I go to war. I started with what any man with rage and an internet connection would do. Angry research. 3 hours, 4 cups of coffee, and a YouTube rabbit hole later, I was deep into legal codes, municipal pet ordinances, and animal registration laws. And that's when I found it. The loophole. See, under state law, any dog trained in military or law enforcement service can be registered as a certified home security unit. That's right. My furry goober wasn't just a pet, he was infrastructure. All I needed was Duke's service records? Check. Proof of ownership? Check. And a notarized statement of his retired working dog status. Also check. Courtesy of my old buddy Jake from the base. That night, while Karen was probably sipping chamomile and dreaming of filing lawsuits against squirrels, I turned Duke into private security, filed the paperwork, scanned the forms, and, just for fun, ordered him a little doggy vest that said, Certified Home Security, in bold tactical letters. He looked like a mall cop and a hero all at once. 2 days later, Karen was back, this time with backup. She rolled up in her beige Toyota Camry like it was an armored vehicle, flanked by 2 other HOA board members. Greg, who once fined a neighbor for having a pumpkin display in September, and Linda, who called the fire department because someone grilled indoors near a window. They approached like a SWAT team made of Pinterest boards. I was ready, coffee in one hand, Duke on my porch in his new vest, looking majestic as hell. Mr. Gentry, Karen said, voice sharp, this is your final notice. I sipped my drink. This dog is in violation of multiple community guidelines, including, I cut her off. Duke isn't a dog anymore. She blinked. He's home security, registered under State Code 77D, retired service animal performing property protection duties. Karen blinked again, harder this time. That's not a real thing. I grinned and handed her the notarized documentation. State seal, official signature, all legal. Greg read it. Linda gasped. Karen's face did that twitchy thing it does when reality doesn't align with her internal dictatorship. This is outrageous, she sputtered. He barks. Security systems do tend to make noise when intruders approach, I said. She looked like she just licked a lemon dipped in regret. This is not over, she hissed, clutching her clipboard like it was a crucifix. Nope, I said cheerfully. It's just starting. Because Duke had just gone from pet to protected asset. And Karen? She had no idea what she'd just unleashed. So where were we? Yes, me, standing on my porch, holding a coffee mug that said world's okayest homeowner, while Karen short-circuited in real time over the fact that my dog, Duke, now outranked her entire HO. I had expected pushback. I had not expected what came next, because Karen didn't just back off. She retaliated. And like any good suburban dictator with a power complex and a shredder full of imaginary bylaws, she came back 2 days later, this time with something straight out of a dystopian fever dream. The Canine Compliance Unit. No, I'm not making that up. Started around 10 a.m. I was restaining my deck. Duke was sunbathing with his nose in the wind like a retired war general reminiscing about Kabul. Then I hear a strange hum, like one of those electric scooters that screams, midlife crisis. I look up. Here comes a golf cart. Not just any golf cart. This thing had flashing yellow lights, a laminated HOA logo on the side, and a sign that said, Canine Compliance Officer on duty. Driving it, a guy in a neon vest, aviator sunglasses, and khakis so crisp they could file paperwork on their own. Behind him, in the little cart trailer, sat a miniature schnauzer in a tiny lab coat and goggles. I had to sit down. I was laughing too hard to breathe. The driver parks dramatically at the end of my driveway and steps out like he's about to declare martial law. Duke, still lounging, lifts his head lazily and lets out one bark. Compliance guy flinches. Sir, he says, straightening a clipboard with actual tabs on it. We're responding to a noise complaint. Multiple reports of aggressive barking patterns emanating from this property. I raised an eyebrow. Aggressive barking patterns? He nodded solemnly. We use a certified algorithm to measure bark decibel and tone, which we then compare against the HOA's approved emotional noise index. Couldn't help it. I snorted. You're telling me you have an algorithm that judges how mean a dog's bark sounds? Yes, sir, he said without a hint of irony. Your canine has been flagged for vocal hostility and disruptive timbre resonance. Oh no, I gasped. Not the timbre resonance. He blinked. We're going to have to conduct a temperament scan. At this point I realized they were serious. Delusional, but serious. What does a temperament scan involve? I asked, already regretting it. He stepped aside dramatically. The schnauzer in goggles jumped out of the cart. I swear on Duke's dog tags. This little fur missile waddled up to us, barked once, then sat down and stared at Duke like he was about to write a dissertation. The guy pulled out a tablet, clicked around, and declared, "Scan initiated. Behavior normalization in progress." Duke tilted his head, confused. I tilted my head, also confused. Is this schnauzer supposed to be your expert witness? He's a certified emotional monitor. I'm sorry. Did Karen print this certification off her Cricut machine? Compliance guy didn't respond. He was too busy analyzing Duke's social energy signature. Meanwhile, the schnauzer was now licking Duke's paw like they were old war buddies at a VFW barbecue. Finally, Clipboard Man stood tall. "Sir, your dog is clearly manipulating the system." "Excuse me?" "He's masking aggression with passive posture. It's classic textbook mirroring. I think he's just vibing. Your dog is gaslighting my monitor." And that, ladies and gentlemen, is when I realized I was living in a parody of my own life. So I did what anyone would do. I invited him inside for a glass of lemonade. He declined. Said he wasn't allowed to ingest homeowner refreshments without prior board approval. Instead, he handed me a fresh citation. Violation. Suspicious canine activity, Tier 2. Recommendation. Mandatory obedience training and sound reduction protocol. Sound reduction protocol. I swear, if they had slapped a tiny bark muzzle in that envelope, I would have lost it. But no, what came next was better. See, they underestimated Duke. Again. Because that evening, at precisely 6:48 p.m., Karen herself strutted down the sidewalk with her latest initiative. A mandatory community dog walk, where all pets were to be leashed, registered, and mood-checked before being allowed on the shared trail. Let me repeat that. Mood-checked. She was handing out tiny laminated cards with happy faces on them. Green for calm, yellow for cautious, and red for problematic energy. Every dog got tagged. Duke? She handed me a red one without even blinking. High-risk temperament. She sniffed. You'll need to walk him in the designated isolation zone. The what now? She pointed at a chalk-drawn square by the dumpsters. The reactivity corner. Oh no. Duke looked up at me. I looked down at Duke. We both knew what had to happen. I took off his vest. Karen's eyes narrowed. That dog is not cleared for public access without his security designation visible. Oh, he's not here as a security officer right now, I said. She smiled. So you admit he's just a dog? No, I said slowly. He's off duty. And then Duke, bless his dramatic little soul, barked exactly as a rogue pigeon flew overhead. Karen screamed, stumbled backward, and in the chaos, her purse flew from her shoulder, right into Duke's waiting jaws. He did not bite it. He just held it, gently, but also very, very firmly, like it was evidence. She lunged. He backed up. The HOA board gasped in horror. Duke trotted off with it like he'd just made a felony arrest. That dog assaulted me, Karen screeched. No ma'am, I said, already pulling out my phone to record. That dog is trained in asset retrieval. You dropped an object in a high-risk zone and he secured it. State protocol. She screeched louder, demanded the bag back, demanded an emergency HOA session, and started citing bylaws from memory like she was reciting scripture. Duke sat down, purse still in mouth, tail wagging. God, I love that dog. That night, they hit me with a new notice. Unauthorized security deployment of emotionally volatile canine. But guess what? They screwed up. Because the footage I posted of the HOA Schnauzer scan and Duke retrieving Karen's $6,000 purse, it went viral. By morning, HOA versus Bomb Dog had 2.3 million views. And the comments? Duke 2024. Free the bark. Karen just got emotionally monitored. You'd think going viral would buy me a little peace. Wrong. It bought me war. Because while the internet fell in love with Duke, the dog that dared, Karen was busy doubling down harder than a toddler losing at Monopoly. The more people cheered for my dog, the more it seemed to personally offend her HOA queen sensibilities. Started subtle. First, someone, definitely not saying Karen, but also definitely Karen, taped a no barking zone sign to my mailbox. Handwritten, in Comic Sans, with a sad little drawing of a crossed-out dog next to what I assume was a crying HOA board member. Then came the anonymous flyer taped to every lamppost in the neighborhood. Is your pet compliant? Untrained dogs can harm your home values. Ask yourself, is your neighbor's dog a loving companion or a bark-fueled liability? And right there, smack dab in the middle of the flyer, a blurry screenshot of Duke, looking like he just declared martial law. But the real kicker came 3 days later. I'm out walking Duke, on leash, vest on, calm as a Zen monk in a dog's body, when a white city truck pulls up. Out steps a woman in khakis and a stiff polo with animal control stitched over the pocket like she's about to arrest someone's hamster. Mr. Gentry? She asks, all business. Depends, I say. Am I being barked at or investigated? She doesn't laugh. They never laugh. We've received a formal complaint regarding your canine. Multiple reports alleging aggressive behavior, including an incident involving personal property theft and intimidation. You mean the purse? The one he carried to my porch like a lost child. She doesn't blink. We'll need to conduct an evaluation. Of course, Karen called animal control. But this wasn't her usual brand of HOA nonsense. This was serious. I wasn't dealing with clipboard cosplay anymore. I was dealing with government paper pushers with actual authority, which meant I had to play this smart. So I agreed. Let the lady into my yard. Offered her a chair. Even brought out Duke's whole folder. Service records, behavior evaluations, security certification, even a framed photo of him in uniform with a tiny American flag behind him, because we go hard with the patriotism in this household. Duke, the traitor, rolled over for belly rubs the second she sat down. She stayed for 45 minutes. Took notes. Observed Duke sniffing sunflowers. Asked if he'd ever bitten anyone. Only emotionally, I said. She didn't laugh at that one either. But she finally stood up, gave Duke one last scratch behind the ears and said, honestly, he's better behaved than my husband's schnauzer. And just like that, she left with a completely clean report. I thought that'd be the end of it. It wasn't, because the very next morning, Karen filed a motion with the HOA board to ban all animals over 40 pounds. 40 pounds. You know what weighs 41 pounds? A golden retriever with 3 tennis balls in its mouth. And to really twist the knife, she proposed a noise enforcement regulation for repetitive non-human vocalizations between the hours of 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. That's right. She was trying to outlaw barking. In a neighborhood where every third house has a dog. That's when the rebellion started. And not by me, by the other dog owners. See, turns out Karen had been ticking off more people than just me. One guy got fined because his beagle barked at a passing leaf. Another got a citation because their Pomeranian looked too excitable during a firework display. People were done. It started with whispers in the HOA Facebook group. Then came the oops. My dog forgot the barking ban protest walk. Dozens of dogs. All sizes. All breeds. Barking in glorious, chaotic harmony. It was like Woodstock for canines. Duke? He wore a shirt that said, bark louder. Live freer. Someone even made yard signs. We stand with Duke. Barking is a birthright. HOA equals hounds oppression authority. Karen lost her mind. She called an emergency HOA session. Made a whole PowerPoint titled, The Silent Neighborhood Initiative, Restoring Auditory Peace. Slides included decibel data, the truth about tail-wagging terrorism, the psychological toll of barking on decorative mailboxes, the canine crisis, how we got here, but the best part? Slide 14 was just a zoomed-in photo of Duke, wearing sunglasses, like he was the James Bond of Labrador freedom fighters. That night, she left a voicemail. Mr. Gentry, I'm warning you. This is your final chance to remove the dog or face escalating action. The HOA is prepared to vote you into non-compliance quarantine. Quarantine, like he was a virus. So I did what any reasonable man would do. I filed Duke as a local emotional support figure. You see, under the county's updated inclusivity statutes, if a pet is recognized as having contributed positively to community morale, they can be labeled a wellness companion. I made my case. Duke's viral fame had put the neighborhood on the map. Local businesses were selling Duke merch. He'd boosted property interest. And emotionally, Karen was the only one mad. Everyone else loved him. The county clerk actually chuckled when she approved it. Said, "Honestly, we could all use a little more Duke in our lives." And that's when I dropped the nuke. I printed the certificate, mounted it in a little lawn display, and placed it right under my mailbox. This home is protected and emotionally enriched by Duke Gentry Veteran K9 and Wellness Officer. Certified, licensed, loved. I swear on my grill, the next morning Karen stood in front of it for 5 minutes, just staring, like she couldn't compute it, like she had been defeated by a Labrador with a title. She didn't say a word, just turned and walked away, shoes crunching softly on the gravel like the sound of a collapsing empire. Okay, let's recap real quick. Karen tried to ban my dog. I turned him into a certified home security officer. She escalated with flyers, fake rules, and a schnauzer in goggles. I made Duke a county-approved wellness asset. Now, if this were a movie, that's where the credits would roll. Victory music. Duke galloping into the sunset. But no, this was real life. And in real life, Karen didn't lose. She reloaded. It happened a week after the emotional support certification went up. Plain envelope. No return address. Just my name, typed in an all-caps font that screamed passive aggression with a minor in legal studies. Inside, a lawsuit. Karen, on behalf of the HOA, was suing me. Not just for the dog. No. That ship had sailed. She was going after everything. Willful disruption of community harmony. Unauthorized display of anti-HOA propaganda. Public defiance of board decisions. Hosting an unpermitted canine gathering, which was, apparently, the dog protest walk, but the cherry on top. Emotional manipulation of neighborhood sentiment via pet idolization. That's right. I was being sued for making people like my dog too much. Now, I'm not one to panic, but I'll admit, for a second, I considered just moving into the woods with Duke and living off-grid. Build a log cabin. Teach him how to catch squirrels. Rename myself something cool like Barkman. But I didn't, because if Karen wanted a courtroom battle, I was going to show up wearing a collar and tags. Figuratively, probably. I lawyered up. Enter Marla Pritchard, former litigator, current caffeine-fueled chaos agent. Wore combat boots to depositions. Kept a taser named Civility. She read the complaint once, then looked at me and said, "Okay, so she's nuts. Certified. She thinks you've turned your Labrador into a cult leader. Technically, he is the face of a neighborhood movement." She spelled wellness wrong in her affidavit. I was already in love with this lawyer. While Marla handled the legal stuff, I fortified. Not with weapons or fences, but with more paperwork. See, the one thing HOA people fear more than dogs? Liability. So I filed for Duke to be officially listed on my homeowner's insurance as a deterrent measure. I installed a second camera system, posted a sign. Smile. You're being watched by a dog with better judgment than our HOA. Then I created something Karen never saw coming. The Bark Pack. Pet Owners Against Karen. A satirical political action committee made up of every dog owner, cat hoarder, and guinea pig enthusiast in the subdivision. We had t-shirts, yard signs, a shared Google Doc titled The Constitution of Bark. It wasn't a joke anymore. We were a movement. And then, right when things hit peak ridiculous, my shed was broken into. Late night.
No storm.
No animals. The back latch pried open. The motion camera cut. Inside, the place was a mess. My tools tossed everywhere. And right there, half buried under a pile of junk, was what they were after. Duke's service records. They didn't take them, though. Just flipped through them. photographed them, maybe. It wasn't a robbery. It was a search. An attempt to dig up dirt. Problem is, they were barking up the wrong dog. The next day, I walked over to Karen's porch. She was out front watering a plant that looked like it wanted to die. I held up a picture from my camera footage. A shadowy figure, short, wearing orthopedic sneakers and a visor. Her build was unmistakable. You could practically smell the perfume from the pixels. Lose something last night? I asked. She didn't answer. Just sprayed her azaleas with enough force to drown them. You know, I added, it's weird how you keep accusing me of disrupting the community. When it's you breaking into sheds, forging citations, and trying to outlaw joy. Still nothing. So I handed her a manila envelope. Inside, a letter from my lawyer. 3 notarized affidavits from neighbors. And a cease and desist order tied in a red ribbon. Because Duke helped me decorate it. This, I said, is your final leash tug. She stared at it. Her lips tightened. Then she hissed, this community needs structure. I smiled. Then maybe you should have adopted a cat. The lawsuit didn't make it to court. Turns out, filing under a fake HOA charter with forged signatures and no verified authority is super illegal. Marla sent 1 letter to the county. 2 days later, Karen got served, for real this time. Fraud, harassment, property invasion. The HOA board? Turns out there wasn't one. Karen had been signing her own meeting notes for the past 18 months. The rest of the neighborhood? They voted her out in a surprise election held in my backyard, where Duke sat proudly under a banner that read, no one expects the Bark Inquisition. And as for me, I did what any reasonable man would do after a war. I threw a block party. Hot dogs for the humans. Bacon for the canines. Even the schnauzer showed up, no goggles this time. Karen was nowhere to be seen. But I did notice one strange SUV parked at the end of the block. Inside sat a man in a suit, holding a tablet, watching from behind tinted glass. I waved. He waved back. Something about it felt unfinished. There's a moment after the battle, when the dust settles, and the silence feels too quiet. Not peaceful. Suspicious. I thought we were done. Karen was dethroned. The lawsuit crumbled faster than gluten-free cake at a toddler's birthday. The HOA board had disbanded like a failed boy band reunion tour. Duke? He was lounging on the porch, basking in fame and bacon-flavored validation. But that's the thing about villains like Karen. They don't go quietly. They go loudly, in rhinestone-covered camouflage, holding a fake badge and screaming legal precedent, while riding a rascal scooter with a megaphone duct taped to the handlebars. And I wish I were exaggerating. Let me rewind 48 hours. After the lawsuit fell apart, things went suspiciously quiet. The neighborhood settled into this weird kumbaya mode. People were walking their dogs without fear of clipboard snipers. Kids were drawing chalk dinosaurs on sidewalks without being fined for prehistoric aggression. Someone even set up a dog treat exchange box near the mailbox station. Duke contributed a chewed slipper. I didn't ask questions. But that quiet? Yeah. It was the inhale before the hurricane. Because just when I thought Karen had faded into HOA obscurity, banned from board meetings and possibly wandering the wilderness in search of a new neighborhood to terrorize, she reappeared. With backup. It happened on a Sunday. Church bells ringing. Birds chirping. Duke chewing on an old tennis ball like it owed him rent. Then we heard it. The megaphone. This is a formal address from the Greater Unified Suburban Standards Coalition, GUSSC for short. I spat my coffee. Duke growled. Across the street, my neighbor Gary dropped his garden shears and whispered, not again. Out of the woods came a caravan. Golf carts. Yes, plural. 3 of them. One held Karen, wearing a sash that said, Interim Regional Standards Officer. The second held a portable speaker system blasting Ride of the Valkyries. The third? A collapsible podium she unfolded in my driveway. She tapped, the mic screeched. Then began. Due to the failure of previous leadership, she meant herself, we have consolidated community guidance under a broader suburban compliance initiative. All previous permissions are hereby void. I blinked. You're forming a super HOA? Not a super HOA, she corrected. A Regional Cooperative Oversight Alliance. And per emergency clause R. 47. Your security dog must be reevaluated for urban compliance. I turned to Duke. He was lying on his back, belly up, tongue lolling out. Total threat to society. I smiled. Ma'am, with all due respect, I don't respect you. You have no jurisdiction. There is no R. 47. There is no regional authority. You literally made up your own badge. She held it up proudly. It was laminated, shaped like a cat, glittered. Karen, I said gently, you are staging a coup with craft supplies. Her eye twitched. You think this is funny? No, I said, pointing behind her. But they do, because at that exact moment, the sheriff rolled up. Not just a sheriff. Every local deputy. Squad cars. Lights. One even had a dog hanging out the passenger window, ears flapping in the breeze like he was auditioning for Top Paw. The movie. Sheriff Langley stepped out, leaned against his cruiser, and said, Ms. Whitaker, we've had reports you're attempting to impersonate a government entity again. Karen stiffened. This is a neighborhood initiative. You distributed over 50 fraudulent fines, nailed signs to private property, and told the clerk at the county office that you were the acting director of canine citizenship. She was not cooperative, Karen hissed. She called you a clipboard warlord with a glue gun. What followed was majestic. Karen tried to flee on her golf cart. Stalled. She tried to command her coalition to intervene. They scattered like cockroaches at a flip-flop convention. She finally shouted, I am the HOA, like she was in a bad superhero movie, and then tripped over Duke's chew toy and face-planted into my lawn gnome. Duke barked once. Soft, polite. The sheriff cuffed her while reading the charges out loud. Impersonating a public official. Trespassing. Filing fraudulent claims. Attempting to microchip a cat that didn't belong to her. Yeah, that's a whole different story. The fallout was poetic. Karen was banned from holding any organizational title in the state for 5 years. The neighborhood formally voted to abolish the HOA charter. And Duke? He got a medal. I kid you not. The mayor, who had seen the viral video, invited us to a city council meeting, declared Duke an official K-9 ambassador of morale, and gave him a biscuit the size of a dinner plate. Someone from a local pet food company offered him a sponsorship. The man from the SUV I mentioned before? Turns out he worked for a documentary team. They're calling it Bark and Order. The Suburban Resistance. These days, things are quiet. Real quiet. Kids laugh without fear of citations. Lawns grow just a little too long. Mailboxes are painted whatever damn color people feel like. And Duke? He still patrols the yard. Still snores loud enough to set off seismographs. Still barks at passing clouds. Still gives side-eye to every squirrel like they owe him money. He's not just my dog anymore. He's a legend. Epilogue. Last week, I saw a realtor touring a new family around the neighborhood. They stopped in front of my house. The dad squinted at the porch. Is that the security dog from the internet? He asked. The realtor nodded. Yep. He's the reason this neighborhood's safe. The kid waved. Duke lifted a paw like royalty. And I swear, just for a second, I saw the mom whisper something that made me smile. I'm glad we moved here. At least there's no HOA. I raised my coffee in salute. Welcome to freedom, folks. Brought to you by Bark Power. And one very, very good boy. If you made it this far, you're officially part of the Bark Resistance. Don't forget to subscribe for more HOA insanity. Comment with your own neighborhood war stories. And like this video if you think clipboards should come with warning labels.